Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming to the class today. If I don't speak loud enough so you can hear, let me know, and I'll pick up the volume a little bit. I'm Reverend Steve Adkins. I'm teaching basically, it says energetic healing, but it's primarily a spiritual healing class. Energetic healing is a term that was coined by one of my teachers that incorporates magnetic healing and spiritual healing together because one supports the other. Primarily, spiritual healing is where you bring in the spirit, transmit the intelligence and personality of the spirit to the person you're working with, and allow yourself to just be a conduit. Magnetic healing is what they call the first aid of energy healing. It's where it's like a mother consoling a child or kiss my boo-boo type of thing, and it makes them feel better. You're transferring compassion and a magnetic energy to the person to create an immediate curative effect. So both are important when you're doing this. Both are needed and both have a very good place. So that's why it's called energetic healing instead of spiritual healing only. Thank you for coming today, as I say. I'm going to go through some of the legalities that are concerned with spiritual healing as far as the state of Florida is concerned. I'll be going through some of the techniques and methodologies. But as I've said in the mediumship class, any method you learn is just that. It's a method. It's not the silver bullet to it. It's not the only way to do it. It's a system of receiving knowledge from the unseen side that you're teaching yourself. And the spirit realm is not dogmatically oriented. They're not religiously oriented. They go more by the intention of the person. So if you want to set up a system that they can work with, they will happily work with you, and you can produce results through any system that you learn. Each one's as good as the other. It's just like listening to a song. 20 people are going to dance 20 different ways. The music is still the same. And that's the same way with mediumship or healing. It's the same God, it's the same energy, and it has the same results and operates under the same principles, no matter what modality or methodology you're using to bring it through. The modality or methodology is specific to you as an individual, just like dancing is. You learn it, the movements that you learn, the different incantations that you learn, whatever it is primarily for you to move yourself into a state of attunement to be used by the spirit forces. So however, if you want to sing Old MacDonald and it puts you in the tune, that's fine. So what I teach is not overshadowing anything you already know. It's not saying it's better than anything else that's out there. It's just a different way to do it. And hopefully the principles are universal enough that they will add to what you already know if you're like a Reiki healer. It's meant to be in addition to, not in place of. So anything I say, it's intended like that, to enhance, to lift up, not to replace or subdue anything you already know. Sometimes people take it like that because I speak so directly, but that's my intention, is to increase what you know, not replace what you know. So anytime you want to ask a question about something I say, please speak up at that moment and we'll address the question. Hopefully, healing classes tend to be more experiential than informational. Mediumship classes are the opposite because there's a lot of history that goes with them. There's a lot of different things that go with mediumship. Healing is primarily a state of attunement. You have to get into a state of attunement. Otherwise, you don't do any healing unless you're doing magnetic healing. Magnetic healing is done by compassion, by desire. Spiritual healing is done by moving into attunement with the spirit realm and passing that intelligence either at a distance or by contact. And we're going to go over both methods in this class. What spiritual healing is to the spiritualist movement what it demonstrates, just like mediumship has what it demonstrates. Too many times the phenomenon is all that people concentrate on. But what healing demonstrates as far as the spiritualist religion goes is the proof, a reasonable demonstration of, I hate the word proof, but that's what the dogma says to say, reasonable proof that there is a greater intelligence, if you want to call it God, divine spirit, whatever you want to call the overall creative energy. It proves that there is a creative spirit that has dominion over the physical realm and acts in a benevolent fashion towards us. Because spiritualists don't believe in a devil, they don't believe in evil forces projecting disorganization to the humankind. They believe people do a good enough job with that themselves. The animal instinct doesn't need much help to do that. The spiritual side lifts you up beyond that, inspires you to do things other than that. So it demonstrates through changing cellular structure, which is beyond human science at this time, that there is a greater intelligence because it changes cellular structure. It neutralizes illnesses that don't yield to regular medicine. And it produces, sometimes as it appears, miraculous healings. But I say appears because everything happens within natural law. There is no miracles. It's just the right combination of energies, timing, people's intentions. That's what produces miracles. Everything at the right point, at the right time, at the right moment of creation. This is what we intend to endeavor to manifest as healers. Most of what you do when you tune into spiritual energies, with mediumship, it tends to come out as words, information, that kind of thing. With spiritual healing, it goes one step further, as you have to transmit the intelligence to the person. You're transmitting the entire presence of the spirit to that individual. And that presence, that intelligence, knows what to do. It knows what to work on. So your job is to primarily sense the nearness of that spirit, be able to bring it into your consciousness, and be the connecting link between the unseen side and the physical side. Now that sounds kind of oddly familiar because that's what artists do. That's what people that write inspirationally do. But with this, you're not just creating a product from your own mind. You are actually connecting and allowing the intelligence and the presence of that spirit to move through you to that person and create a healing shift that that person needs. Now, without getting into a lot of discussion, I've been asked a bunch of questions about, do you have to have their permission? Do you have to have this? Do you have to have that? What about karma? Aren't you overstepping people's karma? All these questions like that. The bottom line is when you connect to a person and you pass that spiritual intelligence to them, the divine is working with them, not you. And all is within divine order when you're doing that. So all these rules, regulations, what ifs, could be's really don't matter, because it's that person working with the divine through the intermediary spirit that has been sent to work with that person. That's how I believe spiritual healing works. The way that illness occurs, in my opinion, and I have a chart that I'll give out in one of the classes, is that in the beginning of life, before life is manifested in the mother's womb, there is a spiritual intention for creation of life. This spiritual intention, whether cooperatively between the two parents or by the mother alone, manifests a spirit presence and starts a process long before the time of conception. Now, I know we're going to talk, somebody's going to say, what about rape? What about incest? All these are physical things. This is the spiritual process that works on a higher level. This spiritual intention and these spirit forces begin to pull together and they create a matrix, a spiritual matrix in the mother's womb before the point of conception. This spiritual matrix determines how the biological mass grows. So you may say that the karma of the individual is developed at this level. Anything that's going to come out physically comes in at this level. So there is a strong encouragement by the spiritual healing trade for expectant mothers or hopeful mothers to come and get spiritual healing prior to conception, so that there's more balance, more energy, more balance to this process. Because as with anything, spiritual or physical, the human mind and free will has a certain amount of influence on that process. So when the spiritual matrix is being developed, a certain amount of the individual's desires, as well as a certain amount of the person's spiritual path that they're going to go through when they're born, is all tied up in this matrix. Once the person is born and they grow to possibly consciousness, whatever you believe the age of reason is or the age of consciousness is, 7, 10, 11, these are all common ages between different religious philosophies, the age of reason, you begin to impact the spiritual matrix with thoughts, with experiences, with different things. You can strengthen the spiritual matrix because it is a combination of spirit and flesh. It's not purely a spiritual creation. It has properties of both, spirit and flesh. That's the only way it could exist in the physical realm. So when you have thoughts, they either strengthen it or they weaken it. And when you as a healer are working with this person, you're trying to reach the spiritual matrix more so than the physical malady that you're working with. Even though as an individual you will concentrate and be drawn by your compassion to the physical malady, your job as a healer is to reach further into the spiritual matrix and try to create an additional harmony within the spiritual matrix. Having said all that, the process that creates illness, in my opinion, only my opinion and only my experiences as a healer over the last couple decades, you've heard thoughts or things, but it's not like, oh, I'm carrying a burden of the world so my shoulders are sore. It doesn't quite work like that. It works like I said, there's a chart that I have that's been developed over 200 years of spiritual healing. And I attended a seminar on it, and it focuses on the 7 different chakra or glandular centers, whichever you tend to draw to. And it talks about different thought processes that affect different physical points of the body, repetitively thought thoughts. An example is if you're having problems with personal relationships, it tends to affect the knees, the elbows, and the back. So what happens in that process, it isn't that those thoughts weaken the physical structure. Those repetitive, unresolved thoughts, as in the case of somebody from a childhood relationship or something of that nature, has never dealt with it, but maybe they put it in the back of their mind, and they've constantly had chronic back pains their whole life. What has happened is that thought has weakened that particular point of the matrix. And then when they do something they've always done, let's say more current and adult, if they do something they've always done, like step off their front step, step up a set of steps, if they've been having a repetitive thought continually about a relationship thing, the knee has become weakened, the spiritual matrix that deals with that part of the body. You step off a step you've always stepped off of, you twist your knee. So it's not so much that the thought is creating that physical illness, it's weakening the matrix that has dominion over that part of the physical flesh. Because everything is connected. There's no real separation. Everything flows one to the other, physical to spiritual and back and forth. And there are intermediate stages where the spiritual has physical properties and vice versa. This is the area that you work with as a healer, the area that has physical and spiritual properties both. That's why people feel a tingling when you work with them. That's why you feel a knowing of that area. So this is the basic principle that I'm going to teach based on either distance or contact healing. It's a describable process. It's a process you can observe and amend as you see fit, as you interpret. But it's the beginning of a process that you can look, observe, and bounce the knowledge you know off of. You may alter it. You may say, well, parts of that apply and parts of it doesn't. And again, we're back to the dance. We're back to the modality that you choose to work with. You'll always take pieces and parts of every modality that you learn, which I have done, and adapt it to your own personal expression. That's how it works. Because until you make it your own personal expression, it's not you. And if it's not you, you're just being a methodology person. You're repeating by rote and you're demonstrating ritual, not actual intuitive healing. So there will be a point that you will step aside from a system. And just because you take parts of a system and not all of it doesn't mean the system's no good or that it's not true. You've just found what part of it you like. So I encourage you to take this whole system in, work with what parts are natural or intuitive to you, and make them a part of your practice. And if you have no system, use this one and alter it as your experience allows. Some of the things, that's how spiritual healing works, in my opinion. If you as an individual, I hear people say, what about belief? Doesn't the person you're working with have to believe? It's nice because they're more agreeable while you're working with them, but it's not required. As in the case of distance healing. Do you have to have their permission? How can a person in a coma, how can a child give permission? They can't. By the natural act of desiring to work with people, you have that God-given right and that talent to work with people. It's not that you're forcing them against their will. You're working again on the level of the divine with the divine, not on a personal level. So you don't have to have people's permission to send them healing. To physically touch them, you should have their permission, though. I can pretty much tell you that. But with distance healing, that's where where it's proven that people don't have to believe any specific way, and you don't have to have their permission to produce curative effects within their life. So that holds true with the contact healing too. They don't have to believe a certain way. They don't have to have any constructive belief at all. Because any illness you work with is part of an entire system that affects more than just the person that you're dealing with. Everybody's spiritual path is tied up in this illness, not just the person having it. So you have to allow the greater potential. Spirit works with the greater potential of who you are, not the immediate potential of who you are. So with spiritual healing, you hope that you have a curative effect, and you desire to have a curative effect, but you can't feel you're a failure if you don't have the immediate effect, because every healing act produces curative effects. Whether known or unknown, it produces a curative effect of some sort. And you may never know about it. So again, your commitment is to being connected to the Spirit, transmitting the intelligence of the Spirit, and allowing that process to occur. And that's the primary part of what we're going to study. Well, the other thing that I get is I had either the fortune or the misfortune. The first 5 healing calls I got after I got my papers here were deathbed healings. People that had gone into comas or were dying of pancreatic cancer, just the most horrible things. And I got called to go see these people. And of course they passed away, And somebody said, well, how can you say that you produced healing if they passed away, if they died? So that's another thing that you have to come to terms with, because the people that you work with, if you do this professionally as a spiritual or energy healer, most of these people have been given up on by the medical profession. They have been told that they have no hope, so they come to you spiritually, emotionally, and financially bankrupt. So you have to be prepared to deal with that on that level when you work with people that come to you in that fashion. And you have to be strong mentally. You can't sit there and hold their hand and cry and tell them how bad they have it and, oh God, I'm so sorry for you. That's not what they come to you to hear. They've heard that from so many people for so long. They don't want that. They come to you for something completely different. They come to you for a little bit of hope in their life. And even the ones that were on their deathbed, they themselves, you can produce a relief of pain. You can produce a calmness about the event that's occurring. You can cause them to be more accepting of the event that's occurring and make their transition much softer for them, much easier for them. And that's a very, very interesting thing that you've been called to share that distinct, unique moment in somebody's life to help them do their transition. And I've had that privilege about 4 or 5 times since I've been doing this. So you're going to...
Steve, could you speak a little bit more to the what you said about giving permission to use your energy?
We'll do that in the class.
Okay.
We'll do that within the class process, but the attunement process that I teach physically is that you, and it'll be, some of this will be in the 10 laws that govern healing that I send out for the next class. All healing acts are an act that is planned by spirit. It's not something that you plan. You are a participant in a planned event. So you do your part, you connect to the person, and you allow the energy to move through you. You, as a healing instrument, are the connecting link. Mm-hmm. What you do as the healing instrument is you set all suffering attracts attention from the mind of God or the divine spirit. I don't want you to think I'm personalizing God in any fashion. The creative force of all life sends an emissary to all suffering, no matter what it is. There has to be a connecting link for that force to work with that person, that angel, guide, whatever you choose to call emissaries from God. They are sent to this area, this person, this group, this area of the world, whatever it is, they are sent there with the mission to produce healing. You, as the healing person, sense that spirit, befriend that spirit into your energy, and make the physical, non-physical, physical, and usable to the physical realm. In doing that, they're using your energy. They're using your person, your energy, and no spirit by force of will can create something in the physical without that intermediary there. Whether it's poltergeisting, whether it's healing, whatever it is, there's a physical intermediary that is present that manifestation is working through. That's part of the natural law. So the other natural law of healing is that all healing events are planned events with planned results. Whether they're known to you or unknown to you, it is a planned event from the spirit realm to the physical realm, because it encompasses the entire person's spiritual purpose, eternal being. It's all done within that perspective, and it's far beyond your knowing to know that. So you have to give permission for your energy to be used, and that mentally as well as spiritually allows you to connect and work, make the process work. And like I said, I'll go through that with the contact healing that we do in this class. I'm only going to talk for about another 5 minutes, and then we're going to go right into a practice of healing. First, we'll do distance healing, and if we have time, we'll start the basis of contact healing, in-person healing. On distance healing, one of the best ways to develop your healing ability is with distance healing. Whether you ever become really effective at it or not doesn't matter. It's employing the principles of distance healing as a tool of personal development for your healing ability. Whether you're going to be a physical healer, a mental healer, or a distance healer, or all the above, distance healing is a perfect developmental tool because it removes the human person from the equation that you're working with. You don't have to deal with the personality or the emotions. It embodies the actual basic principle of spiritual healing, of moving a spiritual intelligence to the person through your instrumentality, through your attunement at a distance. And it demonstrates that the person doesn't have to have a belief or permission to be worked with. So you're working in a very unhindered process when you do distance healing. So with distance healing, the development tool that I would ask you to use during the course of this class is to find 3 to 4 people that you can put on a healing list. It can be somebody at work that says, oh, my daughter this, my son that, my husband this. It can be somebody at church. It can be just any conversation that you have, a casual conversation you have with somebody, and they say, oh, this person needs that, that. Or it's somebody that just asks you if you know anybody that can help. Write down 3 or 4 names, get the diagnosed medical condition, if possible. Mental, physical, whatever it is, have a diagnosed condition of some sort, even if you do it yourself. First and last name, if possible. 3 or 4 names. And what you want to do is about 3 times a week, you want to work with distance healing, not every day. 2 to 3 times at best. But make the healing the same day each week. Make it consistent. Make it a routine that you can sit down and do this with. That way the spirit forces know that time is dedicated to that effort, and they'll draw close to you in preparation for that moment. If you hit or miss randomly, then each time you're going to have to build that energy from the beginning. Whereas after you do it a couple times, the forces will be right there waiting to be pulled in. So it has to be consistent.
Do these people need to know that you're doing this?
I'll explain that.
Uh-huh.
Do you want us to get their location?
No. Don't have to have a location. Just an approximate description of them. Hopefully, if you can get a description of them, approximate age, sex, that kind of thing.
Why do you want to find out the diagnosis if you don't even know what the real healing is going to be?
Because it's part of the visualization process of distance healing that I'm going to teach.
Okay.
So you need to know the approximate area of the body that the illness is in. If you can't get the diagnosed condition, get the approximate area. But distance healing requires more detailed visualization than contact healing does, because the person's not before you to make that physical connection, so you have to build that physical image for the distance healing. What was it you asked, Charlie?
About whether they need to know or not?
No, I would not. The worst thing you can do is in the beginning is to tell people, oh, I'm going to do spiritual healing on them. You are. And then you put yourself out there. You're in a beginning stage. You're teaching yourself how to do this. And you're going to set yourself up to ridicule at the very least if you go around telling everybody you're going to do spiritual healing for them. So just for your own development, Just keep it private to yourself so that this is an internal development process. This isn't proving to people you can do healing. So you want to keep this private to yourself. And what you do is you do the healing for a couple of weeks, and then you ask these people, oh, how's so-and-so doing? How's that? And you begin to get feedback about how the healing worked. But you don't want to tell, I mean, if they're open to that, you can tell them that. But it's better to be doing this privately in your own mind so that you can observe the results and not feel required every time you see that person. You begin to challenge yourself about why there's no healing occurring if there isn't. So it's better to keep it a private developmental process. As you work with this, you'll find out if you have distance healing capability or not. Not everybody does. So it's a development tool that you're using, not so much to show people that you can do this healing. And we'll practice the process in a couple minutes. But that's what it is you're going in and you're exclusively concentrating on a connection to the divine, to the healing spirits that are working with you, in an attempt to project them at a distance to produce curative effects. So it's all subliminal, it's all in the privacy of your own home, and it allows you that privacy to develop yourself in, is what we're trying to do here. Any questions?
I just have one question. Would a photo help if you don't know the person well? You might not remember, how old they are.
That's strictly a personal addition. It's not required. If you think it'll help, you can. If it's somebody you know, you can do that. But the technique that I'm going to teach doesn't require you to know the person. It doesn't require you to even know what they look like or have seen what they look like. So you'll see when we do the technique. And this technique that I'm going to teach, we had a healing class in this very room right here with about 50 people for about a year. And we practiced different modalities of healing for distance healing. And this particular method produced substantial effects over any other method that we used. And this was 50 people, and we had 50 different names on the list, that each person put a name on the list. First, we tried just meditating healing at the list. Then we tried reading each name with the condition. That took forever. And by the time you got halfway through the list, people had lost their attunement. We tried several different methodologies of distance healing. But this one here, it's a combination of the name and visualization. So we combined two methods together, and it was almost like 25% of the list started showing curative effects within a week. So it was a very interesting process that we proved to work over a period of time. And it was a group of people that was investigating healing methodologies. I think we did it for about a year and a half. So it may or may not work for you, but it worked for the group. And it worked on mental issues, physical issues, any kind of issue that was on the list, it worked for. So let's take a 5-minute break and come back, and we'll do the distance healing technique that I just talked about. What we're going to do is a distance healing. Unlike mediumship, deep meditation aids healing, not deters it. So, because you're having to almost go into a mild trance state to work healing properly. So we're going to do a little deeper meditation than we did in the mediumship classes. Just like you to follow my voice. Just think of some names that you want to take into the distance healing, even if it's only one. So get this person in your mind right now and the condition they may have. And you start doing rhythmic breathing, calming yourself naturally. Just feel that calming effect. feel your body slowing down. Let go of all thoughts that brought you here today and where you're going to go when you leave, and just begin to relax. Feeling that calmness settling in. You begin to feel that peace within you as you breathe rhythmically, calming your body. As you feel that calmness spreading throughout your body, you begin to breathe yourself into a state of awareness of the spiritual self that you are. See the color that you find pleasing within the middle of your chest. This is your spiritual color. And you begin to breathe it gently, feeling it as it gets brighter and brighter each breath, as a billows blowing on a coal, bringing out that spiritual self, who you are, until it begins to become an energy all around you, this colored light of halo. And as this light that is the spirit you surrounds you and is you, you feel it becoming all that you're aware of at this time. Gently relaxing your mind. And as you move into this state, I want you now to begin to say that you intend to produce healing here in this moment for the names that you bring before you. Breathe in that intention to ask for intervention for these loved ones. I ask for intervention for the ones whose names I'm about to bring in. Breathe that in and relax. I ask that I be used as an instrument for this intervention. Breathe that in and move to the next. I ask that any healing spirit sent for this purpose begin to draw close and make themselves familiar with me at this moment. Breathe that in and relax. Put your mind out there now. Push your mind out and embrace the healing spirit that's come to work with you. Take a moment. Acknowledge and give permission for your energy to be used in this moment for this distance healing practice. And as you acknowledge that to this spirit intelligence, you feel them draw closer to you again. It's almost as if feeling a warmth melting over your body, breathing in that spirit presence. Now into this presence, I want you to think the first and last name of the person you want to produce healing for. And you say their first name either out loud or in your mind's eye on the in-breath, their last name on the out-breath. And again, in-breath, their first name, out-breath, their last name. Begin to feel a familiarity with this person through their name now. And one more time, in-breath and out-breath. First name in-breath, last name out-breath. Now you begin to feel a sense of who this person is through this. And you begin now to reconnect to the idea of that spirit that wants to work with this. Begin to see that person. If it's a male, you see the outline of a male in front of you. If it's a female, you see the outline of a female in front of you. And now you think the diagnosed or known condition, where it is in the body, you see it in the body. If a mental condition, you see like a cloud around the head. you see that condition, if it's the center of the body, see a light around the center of the body. If you know the diagnosed condition, visualize it in as much detail as possible. And now you begin to allow the Spirit to move over this connection you have with the physical. Feel a flow from you to that person's image. This is the Spirit moving from you to that person, breathing rhythmically, breathing balanced, holding a steady, constant connection to that vision of that person and their image, feeling a gentle flow from you to that person's image. This is the Spirit flowing from you to that person. In your mind, move the connection up one step. Say, let's move this up one level. Breathe it in and feel the Spirit respond as they connect to the person on a higher level. Feel that person and that Spirit working with each other, sending that intention, allowing the Spirit to work with this person for a couple of minutes, breathing, holding the person's first and last name, holding the Spirit connection to them, feeling this process work in a complete fashion, knowing that this healing is occurring, feeling it in your mind's eye, breathing rhythmically, and now releasing this, knowing that this healing will continue beyond this moment, moving back to your own awareness. And if you have another name, the same process. Bring in the first name on the in-breath, the second name on the out-breath. First name on the in-breath, second name on the out-breath. One more time. First name on the in-breath, second name on the out-breath. Making that connection to the Spirit mind, allowing the Spirit to be drawn to this condition, seeing that person as an outline in front of you, identifying the area or specific area of condition if you can visualize it in detail, touching in, allowing the Spirit to move now over this connection, feeling that flow from your mind to the person, the Spirit actually moving to that person over this connection, breathing rhythmically, feeling the infusion of Spirit into this person through this conscious connection. Allowing the Spirit to move and work in a full fashion. Process reaching its point of completion. If you yourself have something you would like to heal on yourself, this process will work with you too. You begin to say your first name one time on the in-breath, last name on the out-breath. First name on the in-breath, last name on the out-breath. First name on the in-breath, last name on the out-breath. Connect to the Spirit's mind. Visualize your own condition in as much detail as possible. Now feel the Spirit moving from your awareness and connection to that part of you that needs the healing. Feel that flow from your attunement to the part of your body that needs healing. breathing, allowing that flow to occur, feeling the stimulation of the spirit presence within this area of your body, allowing the spirit awareness to be in that part of your body. Feel it working, feel it healing. Allow it to be in that presence for a few seconds to a minute. And now begin to come back to your own awareness in your own mind. Closing the process is as important as opening it. Begin to move back into your own mind now. Breathing. Becoming aware of the spirit mind with you. Seeing that spiritual line of energy to all that you brought into this. Like a light of connection to each of them that will remain unbroken when you end this process. Thank the Spirit for coming. Give thanks to the creative Spirit of all, the Supreme Mind, for the ability to heal, the energy to heal, and this time of reverence. Begin to breathe rhythmically. Feel your energy beginning to pull back into your body, finding its resting place, breathing rhythmically, calming the presence, calming the process, beginning to feel yourself coming back to the here and now, gently and easily, taking time to honor the process, honor the healing, and value your part in the process. Taking time to know that you are more now than when you were when this process started. Again, feeling the divinity of what has occurred here, honoring that and respecting it. Breathing rhythmically, just coming back as you find time and ability. Just take time as you get ready. You can open your eyes when you're ready, no rush, just as you find yourself ready. Good. As with this process, there's no need to remember every single word that I said, just the basic phases to it. All healing occurs by an intentional intervention on that person's part. If the healing could occur by osmosis or by need, there would be no illness in the world. There has to be an intentional intervention on someone's part, either by them, by their intention, or by you as a healing instrument to make this process work. Then you ask for the healing to be spread to the people through this intention, and you ask to be an instrument for that process. So first you're committing to the process, then you're asking to be the instrument of that process, and then you're bringing in the higher-minded spirit Those are the three basic prayers, affirmations, whatever you want to call them. That's the total package. Then you submitting to the process and acknowledging to be part of that process and asking for the intervention, then bringing in the spirit that's there to work with that intervention. The first and last name, especially with distance healing, makes the physical connection, just like you make it in the physical. If somebody's before you, you don't need to do that. But if somebody's at a distance, that's what makes the connection, their first and last name, and then visualizing the outline of the image of a body in front of you. And the area gives the specific target for the spirit to work with. Now, what I would say is you can pick one of these charts up at any college bookstore. And I'm not saying memorize the terms on it, but it's very nicely pictorial shown. Everything you see goes into your subconscious, even if you don't consciously remember it. So get something like this and just look at it. Don't memorize the terms. Just get the visualization in your mind. And when you do this distance healing, visualize with as much detail as you can, because it's just like the name. It creates the distance connection when you're doing this. I'm not trying to get you to be doctors or medical practitioners, but you need to be able to visualize at a distance the condition that you're working with if possible. I think it was 10 or 15 bucks when I bought it. You want me to pass it around so you can see what it's like? It's a pretty nice thing, but it is important to be able to physically visualize the condition you're working with. That's part of the, again, there's spiritual properties and physical properties with this process. So you have to make a complete effort. And as I said at the end, you can use this for self-healing. You just act like you're one of the healing names on the list because you're in a state of attunement, and you can send that healing energy to your own body just like you can send it to someone else's body.